I'm curious, when people go through divorce, how can they maintain that decorum? Because you can divorce with dignity. I know that we've seen all these star-studded scenarios where I know Gwyneth is engaged to Brad Falchuk, now seen out there with Chris and the kids. And so there are now scenarios where things are very amicable. And it seems like people are able to say, look, we grew apart, but we can still treat each other with dignity.
Absolutely.
And co-parent.
Absolutely. Have the respect and the consideration and also communication for your ex-spouse that maybe you didn't have in your marriage, and you will have a much more fruitful co-parenting relationship and post-divorce relationship.
Yeah.
It's totally doable. We're seeing some great examples.
I think it's amazing, and I think, one important thing to put out there is, really, people have all these statistics about how children do worse after a divorce. And some of it's true. Boys seem to have a more difficult time. And if your children are under the age of 6, they tend to have the most difficult time. But the great news is also that if the marriage itself was more conflictual, but you learn to get along better afterwards, kids do much better.
Much better.
Much better after the divorce.
I think kids would rather, and they can thrive in a situation where they've got happy parents, even if they're not living under the same roof, as opposed to miserable parents living under the same roof and hating each other.
So, one last scenario where cheating is involved. And it may highlight the most difficult circumstances to go through a divorce, when someone is hurt, or maybe both people have hurt one another and cheating has been involved. It can be extraordinarily difficult to kind of put aside. So how do the divorce proceedings change when cheating is involved?
Well, from the standard of the proceedings, they don't. California and all other states in the U.S. now are no fault, so you don't get dinged for cheating. Now, that's all easy to say, but when you cheated and now you're in a legal proceeding with someone on whom you cheated, it's definitely difficult. Again, deal with those issues of hurt feelings and betrayed trust outside of the legal and financial transaction, and you'll do much better.
How have you dealt with the scenarios where, some of the clients that you've worked with was so very public?
What we'll do is a lot of our mediation happens behind closed doors, and we don't file documents publicly, and therefore the public doesn't find out about it.
Good.
Makes it easier, I think, on the family going through it.
That's very smart. I've always been surprised some of the divorce proceedings that you read about and why the documents aren't sealed.
Right.
Why am I reading this in a newspaper?
In some states they are sealed, but in many they're not, and those are the ones you're reading, and I guess there's a strong public interest.
You can pull up a straight up PDF.
Yep.
It's terrible.
Scary.
Yeah.
This is a doctor show, but as we said, that divorce can really impact your health.
Physical and mental.
And for your children as well,
Yes.
for the rest of their lives. So your tips are well taken.
Laura, thank you so much for sharing with us.